On March 1st, 2026, in the Arabian Sea, the flight deck of USS Abraham Lincoln came alive. An EA-18G Growler from Electronic Attack Squadron 133 roared down the catapult and lifted into the night. It was the first aircraft of its kind to launch in support of what would become the largest naval air campaign in over 2 decades. Minutes later, F/A-18 Super Hornets followed. Then an F-35C Lightning II, a Marine Corps stealth fighter flying its first major combat operation from a Navy carrier deck. This was Operation Epic Fury. While most of the world watched the headlines about Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, almost nobody was watching the carrier that did the actual fighting. This is the story of USS Abraham Lincoln and what it took to keep a stealth fighter, a jamming aircraft, and 3 squadrons of strike fighters flying combat missions, night after night, for months. When people talk about a carrier supporting an operation, they usually picture a few dramatic launches and a headline. What they don't see is the air wing structure, the combination of aircraft types that have to work together for a single strike to succeed. Abraham Lincoln entered Epic Fury with an air wing built around 3 things working in concert: strike fighters to deliver weapons, an electronic attack squadron to blind enemy radar, and, for the first time in sustained combat operations, Marine Corps F-35C stealth fighters integrated directly into a Navy carrier air wing. By the end of this video, you'll understand how those pieces fit together, what a single day of flight operations actually looked like aboard Lincoln, and why this carrier represents what naval aviation is becoming. Let's start with the strike fighters that did most of the work. Abraham Lincoln's strike fighter force during Epic Fury was built around 3 F/A-18 squadrons. Strike Fighter Squadron 14, the Top Hatters, the oldest squadron in naval aviation history, tracing its lineage to 1919, flew F/A-18E Super Hornets. Strike Fighter Squadron 41, the Black Aces, flew the 2-seat F/A-18F variant. Strike Fighter Squadron 151, the Vigilantes, rounded out the Super Hornet force. On March 22, 2026, sailors prepared an F/A-18E from VFA-14 for launch, one of dozens of similar sequences that played out daily. Days earlier, F/A-18FS from VFA-41 were being taxied through the hangar bay, moving between maintenance, fueling, and the flight deck in a cycle that never stopped. Each Super Hornet carries precision-guided munitions, air-to-air missiles, and external fuel tanks, depending on the mission. Loading that ordnance and getting the aircraft positioned on the catapult takes a coordinated team, often sailors in their late teens and early 20s, working in extreme noise and jet blast. Multiply that by 3 squadrons, multiple sorties a day, for months. But the Super Hornets weren't flying alone. Before a strike package crosses into contested airspace, the most important aircraft in the formation often isn't the one carrying bombs. It's the EA-18G Growler. Electronic Attack Squadron 133 deployed aboard Lincoln to do one job: make sure the strike fighters couldn't be tracked or shot down by enemy radar. On March 2, 2026, one of the very first days of the operation, a VAQ-133 Growler launched from Lincoln in support of Epic Fury, beginning months of continuous electronic warfare coverage. The Growler doesn't carry bombs. It carries sensors that detect enemy radar emissions and jamming pods that overwhelm them, flooding hostile systems with electromagnetic noise until they can no longer track anything, including the aircraft they're hunting. For every strike package that launched from Lincoln, a Growler had likely already mapped the electronic battlefield ahead of them. It's unglamorous work, no dogfight footage, no dramatic missile shot. Just an aircraft that flies into danger first and flies out, usually without anyone outside the Navy knowing it was there. In March 2026, Lincoln's Air Wing added something to that formation that had never operated quite this way before. On March 3, 2026, an F-35C Lightning II sat chained to Abraham Lincoln's flight deck, wings folded, waiting for its next mission. This aircraft belonged to Marine Fighter Attack Squadron 314, the Black Knights, a Marine Corps unit flying a Marine Corps aircraft integrated directly into Carrier Air Wing 9. Marine F-35Cs are increasingly embedded into Navy Carrier Air Wings, a structural shift in how American naval aviation is organized. What makes the F-35C different from every other aircraft on Lincoln's deck is low observable technology, stealth. Its airframe shape, radar-absorbing coating, and internal weapons bays reduce its radar cross-section to a fraction of a conventional fighter's. Where a Super Hornet might appear on radar as roughly the size of a small aircraft, an F-35C can present a return closer to the size of a golf ball. But stealth isn't just about hiding. The F-35C's real advantage is sensor fusion, combining radar, infrared, and electronic warfare data into a single picture the pilot can act on, often before an adversary knows the aircraft is there. On March 27th and 29th, sailors moved F-35Cs through the hangar bay and aircraft elevators, the unglamorous mechanical reality behind every stealth sortie. No matter how advanced the aircraft, it still needs the same fuel and the same flight deck choreography as every other jet on the ship. During Epic Fury, VMFA 314's F-35Cs flew alongside Lincoln's Super Hornets and Growlers in coordinated strike packages, the stealth fighter penetrating first, sensor data feeding the rest of the formation, non-stealth aircraft following with the bulk of the firepower. It was a live demonstration of what the next generation of carrier aviation looks like. None of this works without the parts of the ship that never make it into recruitment videos. On March 21, 2026, sailors aboard Lincoln moved a fuel tank across the flight deck, one piece of a massive, continuous logistics operation. Every sortie burns thousands of pounds of jet fuel, and every flight requires refueling, often while other aircraft are simultaneously launching and recovering nearby. Lincoln's Air Wing operated at a tempo that demanded near-constant flight deck activity, aircraft launching, recovering, and moving between hangar bay and flight deck for maintenance or rearming. Sailors directed traffic in a space where one moment of inattention can be fatal, wearing color-coded jerseys identifying their role: yellow for aircraft directors, red for ordnance, purple for fuel, green for catapult and arresting gear crews. The image of sailors taxiing an F divided by a -18F through the hangar bay looks routine. It isn't. That single movement requires coordination between the pilot, the aircraft director, the chalk and chain crew, and the elevator operator, all communicating through hand signals in an environment too loud for normal conversation. Carrier Air Wing 9 didn't just fly missions during Epic Fury. It ran a 24-hour industrial operation, moving, fueling, and launching a mixed fleet of 4th and 5th generation aircraft for months without a single major mishap reported. That's not an accident. That's what years of training produce. By June 2026, USS Abraham Lincoln was still operating in the Arabian Sea in support of Operation Epic Fury, one of the longest sustained carrier deployments of the campaign. What Lincoln's deployment demonstrated wasn't just that American naval aviation can still generate combat power. It demonstrated what that combat power looks like in 2026. Not a single dominant aircraft, but an integrated system. Super Hornets carrying the firepower, Growlers clearing the electronic battle space ahead of them. And for the first time in sustained combat operations, Marine Corps F-35Cs flying as a fully integrated part of that formation. This is the model the Navy is building toward for the next several decades. As the F/A-18 eventually gives way to a sixth-generation successor, the basic structure Lincoln demonstrated, stealth penetrating first, Sensor data shared across the formation, electronic warfare clearing the path, will likely become the default, not the exception. The sailors and pilots aboard Abraham Lincoln didn't make headlines the way the diplomatic agreements did. But for months, off the coast of a country at war with the country whose flag flew above their flight deck, they were the ones actually doing the work that made the eventual ceasefire possible. That's a story that deserves more than a footnote. Lincoln's deployment continues. As of this video, the carrier remains in the Arabian Sea, and Carrier Air Wing 9 is still flying. If you want to understand the other side of this operation, what happened aboard USS Gerald R. Ford during its record-breaking 326 days at sea, that video is linked right here. If this breakdown of how a modern carrier air wing actually operates was useful to you, subscribe to Naval Air Dispatch. Every week, we go inside the ships, the aircraft, and the people that make modern naval power possible. Thanks for watching.